book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to recommend some trilogies. If you didn't know, this is a 7 on Sunday. I'm the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. And speaking of suggesting a topic, this week's topic was suggested by Abby from Abby Lisi the Book Lover. I will link her channel down in the description so you can check her out. Yes guys, the nails are back. I'm so happy that the nails are back and I can finally get my nails done again. I think a lot of you guys will be anticipating me mentioning Divergent as a given, and I'm actually gonna try not to mention Divergent. As much as that is my favorite trilogy of all time, I'm pretty sure I've pushed it on many people. Also, I'm not gonna be even mentioning the Hunger Games series. I am gonna try to mention some book series that are either underhyped or, I mean, they're pretty hyped, but I would still recommend them anyway. I feel like Divergent and the Hunger Games and the Maze Runner are like kind of the OGs, the foundation of where we're at now. Instead, I'm going to recommend some other book trilogies. I'm gonna start off with a book series that I mention every once in a while, and I stand by the statement to this day. It is probably the most underrated series by this author. Yeah, everyone's giving his new book a try because they want more from Papa Rick. Yes, I did mention it's Papa Rick. No one is giving the King Chronicles a chance. A lot of you guys keep on saying, oh, I'm running out of books from Papa Rick, but yeah, I'm not gonna try the King Chronicles because I just don't think I'd like them. Guys, if you want more from him, he's got more. You're just ignoring it. This trilogy right here is set in the Percyverse, but it doesn't cross over in the initial trilogy. I'm pretty sure there's a novella collection that they initially cross over in, but this one follows Egyptian mythology, and it was very engaging, very entertaining. I really love this series, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a Netflix series pretty soon, which is exciting if they can get the adaptation right. I really hope that they cast the Canes perfectly, and I hope that the special effects will be good. I mean, it's Netflix, so I mean, I've got some sort of faith in them to do right, but I just really want them to do the best with this trilogy, even though it is very overlooked. I think that this trilogy is way too overlooked because I feel like a lot of people just keep on deliberately ignoring it. You guys can tell that I'm a wee bit bitter. If you don't want to read the actual books though, there are some graphic novels that you can read of the series. I actually read the graphic novels and I really enjoyed them. I would highly recommend you read the graphic novels if you feel like you can't get through the initial trilogy and you want to make your mind up. If you're captivated by his writing style, then this series is for you. Next, I'm going to be recommending a trilogy that not everybody actually recommends, in a sense that they don't think that the ending is satisfactory. I'd say go into the series with low expectations and see how you feel, because I went into it with low expectations and I ended up really liking the finale, even though there was a void within me that I just felt like could not be filled and I kind of needed more. At the very same time, I felt like the ending was satisfactory to the story. And that, my friends, is The Arc of the Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Now, I feel like everybody was raving about this series years ago and the hype died down once The Toll finally came out. When The Toll finally came out, a bunch of people were kind of disappointed in the ending. Like, I could see why they were disappointed. I think that it's very important to note while you're reading this book series that this is not necessarily only Citra and Rowan's story. This is definitely a lot more people's story. I feel like they are hyped up as the main characters, and yeah, they are the main characters, but it follows multiple perspectives, multiple different stories during this dark situation, and I think that's what I liked about the series the most. I did enjoy following the two main protagonists, but I think if you go into the series with a more open mind, you'll start to realize that it's actually more than that, and that's a good thing. So I do understand why a lot of people didn't like the ending and didn't find it to be satisfactory. Thunderhead seemed to be that book in this series that had the best kind of ending. It was just pure outrageousness, but it made for an entertaining story that did continue on within The Toll. I do think that The Toll was a longer book and kind of unnecessarily longer, but I think that this trilogy as a whole gave us what it needed to in this world. That's why I would recommend this series as opposed to saying that it's disappointing, because I didn't actually find this series to be disappointing. I had low expectations to begin with, and so if you do want something that's fresh and that's really dark, would recommend. Then I'm gonna recommend The Conspiracy of Us trilogy by Maggie Hall. This is a trilogy from an author that I had not read prior to this year. This book series is very fascinating because it's very different from what I would read. It's kind of like a mystery-esque story, kind of like National Treasure for teenagers, or at least we're following teenagers who essentially kind of have to really mature during the situation, because I'd say that it's kind of almost outrageous that the protagonist is like 15 or 16 and she's going through what she's going through in this book series. It is wild, but it is a very entertaining story. And I have to say, Map of Fates is one of the best sequels I've ever read in my entire life. You have to be honest that the final book is kind of a slower finale, but it wraps the story up very well, and it ended on a very satisfying note. So I would recommend this series if you're wanting to start something new. I mean, it is pretty dark at times in a sense that you're kind of dealing with underground organizations and gangs. And I like that they incorporated that into young adult fiction. I would very much recommend this series if you are looking for a very underrated series, very much underhyped. I don't even know if these hardbacks are even in print anymore. I don't even know if this book series is even in print anymore, but if it still is, if you can still get your hands on the series, please do. It is that good, in my opinion. I'm getting a little bit too predictable at this point. I can't do this video without recommending the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. Now, it's very funny because a lot of people find Dreams of Gods and Monsters to not be satisfying, and that's because there's an added perspective, but I find that added perspective so well done. So the first time that I read Dreams of Gods and Monsters, I hated the last book. Like, it just was messy and I was confused. But the thing is, with the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, as opposed to the other trilogies that I mentioned, this particular trilogy, you have to be paying attention the entire time. You have to be putting in the brain work, because if you miss at least 1 or 2 references that were made previously in the series, the rest of the series is not going to make sense. I mean, that is kind of a given when it comes to any particular book series, but when it comes to this specific book series, it's actually very important to be paying attention the entire way through, because there's so much information and it doesn't technically wait for the reader to pick it up. You have to either go back and reread it, or you just have to deal with being confused. First time I read the series, I was super confused, but the second time I read the series, which was this year, I paid full attention to the series. I got invested and hooked in these characters, and I'd say that's when it's absolutely worth it. I would definitely recommend this series to anybody who is invested in the first book enough to continue on with the rest of the series. I know not everybody likes the direction that the series goes into. A lot of people really wanted to see more romance in the series, and I think that you do get some romance between the side characters. You don't necessarily get to see the main characters with each other all the time, even though this book series is technically about their romance. I can't spoil anything, but I would highly recommend it. It is a purely timeless series, in my opinion. Then I have to recommend another one of my favorite trilogies of all time, and that, my friends, is the Malediction trilogy by Danielle L. Jensen. Now, additionally, this book also comes with a novella called The Broken Ones. You don't actually need to read it, but it's a really good backstory and insight into one of the side characters' love interests. If you want to be heartbroken in the exact same way you were reading this series, then read The Broken Ones. I loved this series a lot, specifically because it pulled on my heartstrings. It has a mythical creature that I didn't think that I'd be super invested in reading a story about. We're reading a book series about trolls. All I think about when I think about trolls are the troll dolls with like the fancy hair, you know? Honestly, if you like any of maybe Sarah J Maas's books, if you like any of Holly Black's Fae books, if you like any kind of Fae fiction, even the Iron Fae series, this is a series that I would highly recommend, because it kind of has the same flavor as those series. It has the same formula, but it's just done with a different kind of mythical creature. And I understand why that is a turnoff for many people, but trust me, the series is worth reading, and I just don't see it hyped up enough. I know it's had a rebranding in terms of cover change. I hope that the cover change persuaded people to pick this series up as much as I have. It's that good in my opinion. It's very close to Divergent in being one of my favorite trilogies of all time. That is saying something. The second last trilogy that I gotta recommend is also one of my favorite trilogies of all time, and it is also self-published. That, my friends, is the Red Winter series by Annette Marie. I rarely see a bad review about the series. A lot of people who have read the series absolutely love it. I'm so happy that they do, because it's getting the praise that it deserves. I don't think that it's getting enough of it. I got an illustration here. I love the illustrations throughout the series. It's another reason why the series is definitely worth reading. I don't know if this is a Kindle Unlimited series that you can read if you do have Kindle Unlimited. What I do know is that you can easily purchase it where they print any kind of independently published books. I'd say get your hands on these books, or at least read the ebook, just so that you can experience the amazing illustrations throughout, but also it's available in audiobook form as well if you want to experience it that way. Funnily enough, the Red Winter trilogy is in place of the Shadow of the Fox trilogy on this list. I do love, and I will always love, the Shadow of the Fox trilogy, and I didn't think that a trilogy with a somewhat similar concept would beat my ranking of that series on my favorite trilogies list, but it kind of did. Yeah, the Red Winter trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies of all time as of this year. It's made me so happy that I've branched out to reading a bunch of independently published books, because I found a gem like this that I was absolutely engrossed in and I was absolutely engaged in, and oh my goodness, I read this series within 24 hours. And if you don't like the first book, I'd highly recommend you continue on with the next books, because I think I gave the first book a 4 out of 5 stars and the next 2 were instant 5 out of 5 star reads. And the final trilogy that I have to recommend is not necessarily an underrated trilogy. I think that this is a very hyped up trilogy. And in my opinion, it's one of the best trilogies ever. Not everybody loves it as much as I do. But personally, this is one of the best series that I've read from this particular author, and this particular author is one of my favorite authors of all time, and that, my friends, is Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab. I gotta bring up the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. I love this trilogy with all my heart. I love these characters with all my heart. It has been, I'd say, 4 or 5 years since I've actually first read this trilogy. I'm pretty sure that this was one of my favorite trilogies of 2017. My goodness, and it's like 2021 now. Wow, it has really been that long, but it is truly golden. I still think about it to this day. It's been years. I haven't even reread it, but I plan to reread it sometime in the future, just to re-experience Kel and Lila and Alucard and Rai. I just love those characters so much. Those characters I still think about to this day. I recommend this series non-stop. When my husband is asking me for book recommendations, or when we're walking past it in Kinokuniya, I'm just like, that's a Darker Shade of Magic, please read it. I still recommend it, and if I'm gonna keep recommending it to him and not to my audience, then what am I doing? So I'm recommending it to you guys. If you haven't yet read this series, if you've read some other books from Victoria Schwab that you're not actually a fan of, give these ones a try. I'm pretty sure that I read a Victoria Schwab novel before I ended up reading this series. I think it was The Savage Song. I didn't like that duology that much, but then when I went into this trilogy, I ended up falling in love. If not, I would highly recommend The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. That is a standalone, but we are talking about trilogies here, and in terms of trilogies, this one was absolutely satisfactory for me, even though there is going to be a spin-off. When are we gonna get news on that spin-off, Victoria? I've been waiting for years for news on that spin-off. We've got some other standalones that are coming out from Victoria, but I need to know when Threads of Power is coming out. That is gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social medias. I'm at GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also at Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/gswizzle. And I'm at TikTok. I'm at GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it in a double. Started out with half and I flipped it in a double.